January 2026. We are coming to you live from Kenya's capital of Nairobi. This is Morning Live, your one-stop shop newspaper review show, as well as conversations that are close to your heart. Do keep me company. We'll be taking a look at some of the stories making headlines across the country and beyond, because something happened in Uganda as a new president, well, not quite new, is in office at the moment, as well as what is happening within the ODM party. This is a conversation that has been headlined on the local dailies this morning. Raila Odinga's child may just be the heir to the ODM party. So we'll be having that newspaper review discussion later on in the show. So keep me company. Our SMS feedback numbers are open 23059. We are streaming this bulletin live on Facebook and on YouTube. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Let's get this show started. Now, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has defended his victory in Thursday's general elections, accusing opposition leaders of attempting to disrupt peace in the country. Speaking to the nation a day after being declared the winner, Museveni emphasized the legitimacy of the electoral process and called on all Ugandans to respect the results and maintain national stability. Observers from the African Union who monitored the elections have described the polls as free and peaceful, noting that the process was conducted transparently and without major irregularities.
When we reviewed the membership on the 6th of May, you remember we had 21 million members and 18 million of them are voters. But we are now talking of 8 million who turned up. So the opposition, and many of them who did not turn up are our members. So the opposition are lucky, because if all our members turn up, there will be no opposition in Uganda, I can assure you. The plan everywhere was that where NUP is defeated, gangs with the pangas should attack the polling station. They came with the pangas to attack the polling station, and they were shot. 7 of them were shot dead there with the pangas. The other year, when there were riots in Kenya, the same riots were supposed to happen here. But the people they wanted to use came and told me, and we diffused the. So therefore, I am advising this small group of traitors, but they are working with foreigners, some homosexual groups, some this and that. This is free advice from me, that please stop what you are doing, because we know everything, and you will not do it, either peacefully or unpeacefully.
All right, tension. The Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, have persisted as family members of the late party leader Raila Odinga addressed claims that the party has been hijacked by a section of leaders. Winnie Odinga, the Iala Member of Parliament, and her brother Junior Odinga asserted that they will not be intimidated or silenced over their positions. They emphasized their commitment to leading efforts aimed at liberating the party from individuals they claim have taken control unlawfully. The siblings were present during a church service and also participated in a political meeting held in Kibra, where they outlined their vision for ODM's future.
Kuna watu wengine walisema hatuwezi kuja hapa. Hao ni akina nani? Waeleze nimerudi nyumbani, nimefika kwa bedroom na hata saizi natoa viatu. Hakuna siku baba aliwahi let anybody atoke kwenye hii chama. Wanaongea sana, na tukiuliza maswali wanasema tutoke kwenye chama. Tukitoka watabaki na nani kwenye hii chama? Hauwezi copy paste baba. Huwezi copy paste the greatest leader Kenya has ever seen. Atunabadilisha na huyu ati sasa tuko na baba. No, haiwezi kuwa hivyo. So sisi kama watu wa ODM lazima tuongee na watu wetu. Lazima tuongee na mavijana, tuongee na wamama, pia wazee tutaongea nao. Na wale wanasema ati sijui baba aliwaambia sijui nini, hiyo ni kukosa adabu. Nyamazeni bwana, hiyo ni kukosa adabu. Tulieni bana. Everything baba alikuwa anasema mbele ya watu wake.
Internal divisions within the ODM have intensified in Kakamega County, with party leader Oburu Oginga forced to two separate meetings of ODM delegates. The rift follows a standoff between two factions in the county. One group, led by the ODM county chairman and Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza, insists that their meeting represents the legitimate gathering of the party. Meanwhile, the other faction, aligned with former Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, has organized a separate meeting in Butere, further complicating party unity.
Niliitwa huko Butere, na nilipoitwa huko mimi nilienda huko kukula kidogo lunch, breakfast. Nikapata kuna halaiki ya watu wamenasema hawa pia ni delegates. Na mimi nilikuwa na waziri Oparanya, nilimleta hapa akuje aseme ya kwamba sisi tunataka Kakamega moja.
Kakamega is the indivisible capital of Western region. Lazima sisi tuungane. Na mimi nataka kuhakikishia bwana party leader kwamba hapa Kakamega watu wa kulinda ground ni hawa delegates.
Wewe Mheshimiwa Oparanya, nataka nikuulize ndugu yangu, wewe ni waziri. Na nataka nimuulize Mheshimiwa William Ruto, huyu waziri wako kama anataka ukuwe na tamu mbili, ni akuje waongee na baraza,
na ile negotiation ikifanywa haitakuwa negotiation ya viti peke yake. Lazima itakuwa negotiation ya values za chama chetu kama ODM.
Those are some interesting developments at the ODM party, and we'll be having a conversation around that on the newspapers, because it just pits two family members against each other in critical voices within ODM. So stick around for that. Now, two boys aged 13 and 14 died after drowning in a dam formed by the Gatara River waterfall in Rukubi village, Kabete sub-county. The tragic incident occurred as the boys were returning home from catechism classes at Kingero Catholic Church. According to residents, the two decided to go swimming at the dam, leaving a third boy behind to watch over their clothes. Moments later, the third boy raised an alarm after noticing that his friends were no longer visible in the water. Residents described the area as extremely dangerous, noting that the waterfall and dam attract many visitors due to their scenic beauty. They expressed concern that despite the risks, the site remains unfenced and lacks warning signs or safety measures. Volunteer divers later retrieved the bodies of the two boys from the dam, and the bodies were taken to St. Teresa Mortuary in Kikuyu as police launched investigations into the incident.
Kaka hapo akiwagojea. Saa ile aliona hawakuweza kutoka, akaenda nyumbani akasema wamedrown huko, na ndio hatua ikashukuliwa, tukaenda huko na tukawatoa usiku. Tuliwatoa lakini walikuwa wameaga. Wazazi wao walikuja na pia wakatabua miri, na pia miri tukashukua tukapeleka St. Teresa. Sisi serikali kuna watu wengi tumetoa hapo. Wanaendaga kuswim, na ukiangalia katika huko ndani kuna mizizi ambayo huwa inashika watu hapo ndani. So ukienda hapo it's very deep. So tunataka kuangalia vile tunaweza saidia tusipate maafa ingine. Hii tuseme ni national kwa sababu inakuanga hapo. Kunaye mto unapitia hapo. Lakini hapo ni vile ilienda ikafanya kama ilishiba sana. Sasa ikawa kama ni kizima iko hapo ndani. Na kuna mti ambaye uko na mizizi. So hiyo maji inaendaga ikitelemka ikiingia hapo ndani.
Tulikuwa vijana wengi sana. Tulingangana, watu walikuwa wamejaa hapa sana wengi. Tulingangana na tukawapata. Ombi langu ni hapa pahali ijulikane vile inaweza tengenezwa watu wasikufia hapa tena. Majina yangu mimi naitwa Francis. Tulikuwa vijana wengi sana. Tulingangana, watu walikuwa wamejaa hapa sana wengi. Tulingangana na tukawapata. Ombi langu ni hapa pahali ijulikane vile inaweza tengenezwa watu wasikufia hapa tena. Ya watu kukuja hapa, kuna mto inakuanga kubwa sana. Sasa watu wanavutiwa na hiyo umaridadi. Sasa wanakuja. But wengine wakikuja, kuna watu wengine wajui kuswim. Wanajikuta wameingia pahali ya. Sasa unaona tunapata kitu inaitwa kifo. Kifo inapatikana hapa.
Serikali ikuje kwanza iangalie, ione venye inaweza tusaidia. Hapa ni mara mingi sana ajali imepatikana. Wageni ndio huwa wanakuja, manake hawajui, wao ndio wakiingia ndio hawajui mambo ya hapa.
Deep sorrow and outrage marked the burial of Richard Rotich, a pharmacist at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, who was brutally murdered by armed robbers at his home on January 6th. Rotich was laid to rest in his rural home in Koisar village, Barwesa Ward, Baringo North constituency. Family, friends and community members attending the burial condemned the killing, describing it as unacceptable and demanding justice for the slain pharmacist. Community leaders openly criticized police, blaming inaction and intelligence failures for allowing criminal gangs to continue roaming freely despite repeated warnings from residents.
Ile maneno ya sheria ya kusema mtu asinyongwe, mimi ninasikia watu ambao wanaomba katiba ibadilishwe. Hii maneno ya rights, wapi iko watu ambao wanafanyaga maneno ya ati wako hawa ni human rights activists? Wapi saa hii hawa hapa? Wapi rights ya huyu?
We shall go full length mpaka hawa hata naye hawa waende kaburini. Si namna hiyo. This one is as enough evidence. Na wakati walipelekwa kotini, familia ingine 8 walikuja kotini kusema hii ndio walikuja kutoa sisi.
Residents of Kwamwatu village in Matu Ward, Yatta sub-county in Machakos County were left shaken after a coffin believed to belong to a minor was discovered at the doorstep of a neighbor's house under unclear circumstances. The unusual discovery caused panic among villagers, prompting the intervention of local authorities. The coffin was later burnt in a joint operation involving Area Chief Susan Kingo, community leaders and residents. Speaking after the incident, Yatta Redeemed Gospel Church Bishop Maurice Kikului blamed suspected fake pastors for the bizarre act. He said there has been a growing trend of conmen posing as clergy, planting frightening objects at homes before demanding money from residents in exchange for prayers meant to cleanse or protect families.
Deserted home ya kwamba usiku wa kuamkia leo kuna mtu ambaye aliweza kuleta jeneza ya mtoto mdogo akaiweka nje ya mlango wa mboma ya nyumba ambayo mwenyewe hayuko na familia yake aishi hapa. Na hiyo jambo ikaweza kujulikana kupitia kwa watu ambao ni watu wa village, na ikaleta watu pamoja kupitia kwa chief na MCA wa sehemu hii, na mimi pia nikaitwa. Na nilipokuja hapa nikapata watu wakiwa na woga mwingi sana, wakiona ya kwamba shetani mwenyewe ameweza kutembelea katika village yao. Lakini kupitia kwa maneno na neno la Mungu nikaweza kutuliza watu mioyo, na nikaweza kuwajulisha ya kwamba huyu si shetani alifanya hivyo. Inaonekana ni mtu aliyetumwa ama alikuwa na lengo.
Kwa upande wangu mimi ni kijana, nimezaliwa kwa hii mboma. Na hii mboma haikukaa hivi kupanda kwetu, ni mtu tu amesababisha hii. Lakini hii imetendeka leo, ile ingine tulipambana. Kweli ile ilikuja ikatulia, lakini sasa hii imetushangaza. Kwa hivyo haijalishi ni nani, awe ni mmoja wetu, awe ni mtu wa kutoka nje, hawache hiyo kitu kabisa na atajulikana tu.
Mimi ni mmoja katika hii familia. Hii shida ilianza tangu 2020, tumepambana hata wa leo na tunaendelea tu na kupambana. Hii imetendeka leo, ni mtu tu anatuuzia uonga na atununui. Tunaomba bado pastor, bishop mtusaidie kuomba hii shida iishe kabisa. Tukae kwa boma, tukae tu vizuri na familia wengine, atuongopi chochote.
Kwa hakika hili ni jambo la kushangaza katika huu mtaa, lakini tunaamini ya kwamba yote yameisha katika jina la Yesu, kwa kuwa tumekuwa na watumishi wa Mungu ambao wamekuja kutusaidia hili jambo.
The Ministry of Health has issued a stern warning to private and mission hospitals against exploiting patients using social health insurance cards, threatening to revoke licenses of facilities found engaging in counter-charging. Speaking in Nandia, Kirinyaga, Public Health Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni condemned health facilities that allegedly overcharge patients or fail to provide required medical services, saying such unscrupulous practices will not be tolerated. The PS revealed that some private and mission hospitals are reportedly involved in these exploitative practices, forming syndicates to profit at the expense of Kenyans relying on SHA. She emphasized that the government will intensify inspections across all health facilities to ensure patients receive value for their insurance contributions.
The facilities that are co-charging, and especially on services that are free or services that are already paid for by SHA, must stop. And it is the high time that facilities displayed a charter of what they are offering in their institutions. I have seen patients sometimes go to a facility and the facility does not give information on what they are offering and what they are not offering. Sometimes you find a facility does not have lab services, then they register the person and then they tell the person, wewe enda ukapimwe hapo kwa hospitali nyingine. Therefore, we must have, it would be important that we have charters displayed in our facilities so that our patients or the citizens can know what exactly is being offered in facility X, Y, Z. Members of the public have a right to know who is offering what, from level 2 all the way to level 6 facilities. It has come to our attention that facilities, some of the facilities, because some are really good, but some people have decided to be counter-charging on SHA services, SHA that are catered, services that are catered by SHA. That you go to the facility, probably vaccination is free, you find somebody in a facility is asking for 100 shillings. It is wrong. And that is what we are saying, that such facilities should be put on notice, that we will send people to inspect so that we know who is cheating the members of the public. Please do not steal from the ill. Do not steal from the sick. I would rather you even do anything else, but don't steal from the sick. His Excellency the President and the government of Kenya is already rolling out the robust universal health coverage. And this includes the Social Health Authority, it includes Human Resources for Health. We are reforming KEMSA so that we are able to get a refill of drugs every now and then. We won't have mahospitali zinasema hakuna dawa. We want every facility to also have better infrastructure. And Rome was never built in a day. We have been on this for the last 3 years. And really, you have seen the turnout. You have seen the transformation. You have seen how people have gotten assisted. And if you have a challenge, and especially to the Social Health Authority, please do not hesitate.
Education officials in Thika have launched an intensive mop-up exercise aimed at ensuring all learners who completed grade 9 have reported to secondary schools as learning continues nationwide. The officials warned that no grade 10 learner will be allowed to remain at home, emphasizing that basic education is compulsory under the law. The exercise is targeting parents and guardians who have delayed enrolling their children in senior secondary schools without valid reasons. Speaking during the exercise, education authorities noted that failure to take learners to school denies them their right to education and undermines government efforts to implement the competency-based curriculum.
Basic education is compulsory so that anyone the age of school-going age, that is between 5 and 17 years, they should be in school. And therefore, any parent who knows that the child or his or her child is at that age, school-going age, and is in the house with him, these people will be arrested, because so long as the chief is aware and then we inform our DCC, we shall go and have such a parent arrested as we have the child in school. So it is a requirement that all our children get basic education. It is a requirement, it is compulsory, and therefore I want to encourage all the parents to have their children in school. Anybody who has any challenge, let them come out to us or move to the chief. If you are staying in an environment where you see a child who should be in school, and yet the parent is not taking responsibility to take the child to school, report to the nearest chief. We shall have an exercise called mopping up. That is, we mop up all the learners who sat grade 9 examination to transition to grade 10. And in such an exercise, we move to homes, to villages, to these informal settlements, with the help of the interior, that is the chiefs, sub-chiefs, who are able to ensure that all the children that sat grade 10 are able to move to the nearest day school, that is a senior school, so that they are able to transition well and have their education up to grade 12 when they can qualify to move out. We have just flagged off the beneficiaries that had been allocated for us, a total of 33. But my observation is, out of the 62 that we visited, they are all needy. But we have many other candidates who did not benefit, as in we were unable to take care of all of them. That means we still have a number of quite needy candidates.
Watoto watatu na nilikuwa na challenge za kuwasomesha. Kwanza msichana alikuwa shule, nikagojeka, nikapata stroke. Kwa hivyo kulikuwa na challenge mingi. Huyu wa grade 10 kusema ametoka grade 10, nilikuwa naona kama hatasoma. Lakini sasa niko na tumaini atasoma.
You know, it's quite interesting because last week there was a report, about 1.1 million learners were expected to join grade 10, the senior schools, but just about 300,000 of them had joined. So the big question is, where are the 800,000? Is it because of lack of school fees? Is it because of dissatisfaction with the schools that they have been admitted to, or at least the letters that they have been offered from different schools? So we'll be looking to see how this mop-up exercise, it's something that has been picked up across quite a number of counties to ensure that every single learner who's supposed to join grade 10 actually joins, even as that period had been extended as well by the Cabinet Secretary for Education. So allow us to take a quick break at that point. When we come back, we'll be coming back with a newspaper review. What is going on in ODM party? That's the big question. So that and much more when we return after the break. Don't go too far. All right, good morning. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. We'd love to get into the newspaper review to look at the headlines on the local dailies and what they mean for you as well as for the country. It's a very highly politically charged year ahead of 2027. Talks about UDA ODM coalition talks, the broad-based government, the opposition as well, led by the DCP party and Wiper Patriotic Front. So we are all barely just trying to hang on into the new year. It's just 19 days old, and we already can see quite a number of various political activities that are happening. I'll begin with the ODM party, because this is a party that was actually celebrated 20 years last year as they were celebrating in the Mombasa region. And Ahead is ODM rift explodes, and that is the headline on the Standard newspaper this morning. ODM rift explodes, and this is quite interesting, and it's different from the normal explosions we've been talking about ODM, because it pits Raila Odinga's daughter versus Raila Odinga's brother. Now, power wars. Winnie Odinga has stormed back into ODM politics with a show of force that has rattled the party's new power center, commanding a mammoth Kamukunji crowd reminiscent of her late father's rallies. The Iala MP warned party bosses against unilateral decisions and demanded for a national delegates conference before any 2027 realignments. Now, her intervention sharply contrasts with smaller rival meetings led by party leader Oburu Odinga and exposes widening cracks as ODM weighs coalition talks with President Ruto's UDA. From Kibra to Kakamega, the party Raila built is now openly divided between unity calls, rebellion threats, and a high-stakes fight for its soul. So like I said, this is not just any sort of explosion. This is a different kind of explosion we are seeing within ODM party, which pits, Raila Odinga's daughter, Winnie Odinga, and Raila Odinga's brother, Oburu Oginga, who is the senator for Siaya County. Now, just a little bit of background. If you remember last year, as ODM was celebrating 20 years, Winnie Odinga at a rally within the coastal region said, there are some people who are attempting to sell the party and they should know that ODM is not for sale. Well, back then, there were a lot of allegations on who could she be talking to, what do you mean plans to sell ODM party, who are they selling it to, is it the highest bidder, is it a particular kind of person? And with recent developments concerning the UDA-ODM coalition talks, she felt it necessary to come out and speak on this. And what better place to speak rather than Kamukunji? And Kamukunji is quite a special ground, I'd say, where Odinga would normally make declarations at Kamukunji. When he wants to go back to the people, he would go back to the people at a Kamukunji rally. And so, the setting was important, Kamukunji. The speaker was important, that is Winnie Odinga. And if you looked at that particular rally, it wasn't really about, ODM leaders and delegates, all downed in orange and, with capes. Really, it was just the people. And so, with appearances in politics, it's quite critical. What we see is also important. It matters. And this is quite different from what we saw the party leader Oburu Oginga do with the likes of Gladys Wanga and other ODM leaders last week. For her, it was just her, a number of leaders, including her brother, as well as just the people. And so to make this kind of declaration before the people, saying Raila party can't be led by sellouts, is quite interesting. Now, Winnie Odinga yesterday convened a large rally at Kamukunji in Kibra, Nairobi, drawing a crowd reminiscent of her of her father, the late Raila Odinga. The turnout stood in sharp contrast to the modest gathering that recently listened to party leader Oburu Odinga at the same venue. She used the rally to caution ODM leaders against making unilateral decisions on the party ahead of the 2027 polls without members through the National Delegates Conference, what we call NDC. Now, Winnie said ODM supporters were keen to see strong leadership guiding the party forward and not what she described as sellouts. Now, just 4 days earlier, Oginga Oburu had told the party leaders and members opposed to the CCM, the Central Management Committee's decision to pursue pre-election coalition talks, that they were free to leave ODM rather than destabilize it from within. So different opinion on the way forward from these two different, I'd say, leaders who may as well just be quite critical for ODM party. Now, for Odinga, in essence, Winnie Odinga, for that matter, in essence, does not agree to the coalition talks and says, we need to not just make resolutions unanimously without consulting the people who are part of ODM. Now, the National Delegates Conference is quite important because any key decisions, especially around a coalition pact or a coalition agreement or even an alliance with any political party, has to be made through an NDC, not just for ODM party, party, but for any particular party. And NDC as well is quite critical because it also unanimously has to back a particular leader or a particular candidate for the presidency. And so for Winnie to suggest that the party should go back to the NDC, essentially she's saying let's give a voice to the people who are part of ODM, especially the ODM members. And ODM being 20 years of age, you can only imagine how many members they do have across the country. And for them to make a decision on whether they want to go the coalition way or should they just field candidates on their own. Now, with the decision by the Central Management Committee, CCM, if you look at that decision, it really didn't give room for any decision to be made at an NDC. Essentially, the party said we are allowing the party leader to begin the pre-coalition talks with UDA, not mentioning whether or not this decision was going to go through an NDC. And it's such an important decision because it's a make or break, could determine whether ODM gets power come 2027 or not. And so for we need to ask that ODM goes back to the people. It's quite interesting and an interesting approach, which is quite similar to her father, say, who would always talk about, the people have to decide. And so this paints a picture of already a divided ODM. There are two factions to it, the faction that agrees with the broad-based government and the faction that disagrees with the broad-based government. And she also perhaps directly answered Oburu Oginga, who had talked about, if you're not happy with the coalition talks, if you do not support the pre-coalition talks, then you're free to leave ODM rather than destabilize it. And Winnie, on the other hand, says, you cannot force people out, you cannot eject people from the party just because that they do not agree with the decision you've made. So that is the latest development. At the same time, ODM in tatters, his party boss is forced to attend 2 meetings, and this perhaps also, widens the dent within ODM. In Kakamega, Oburu Oginga was to, go to a meeting for ODM party, right? But just landing in Kakamega, and then he realizes, okay, there are 2 meetings of ODM party, one led by the official county chairman of ODM, who's the Kakamega County Governor, Fernandez Baraza, as well as a meeting by the former Kakamega County Governor, as well as CS for MSMEs, Wycliffe Oparanya. And it's a question of which meeting does he go to, which one does he fail not to. And so he goes to both. However, he sort of hints to Wycliffe Oparanya to unite because, he's not the county chairman of ODM, it's Fernandez Baraza, the current governor, and asks him that he unites with that particular team to allow ODM chart its path forward in Kakamega County. So that is also another clear indication that ODM may not be as united as they may want the Kenyans or the Kenyan people to believe it is. I'd also link that headline on the Standard to the headline on the Daily Nation this morning, which talks of it's Odinga versus Oginga. That is the headline on the Daily Nation. Now, speakers at Kibra rally turned the heat on ODM officials, crashing dissent contrary to Raila's ideals. Now, Winnie Odinga, who was quoted saying, Baba died just the other day, but they are in a hurry to get some things done. Not everyone believed in Baba. Some were only using him. On the other hand, Oburu Oginga, the party leader, says those who wish to leave should do so on their own. Our focus is on strengthening the party. So Winnie Odinga, the daughter of former ODM leader Raila Odinga, who died last October, has criticized an ODM wing she accuses of seizing power, railroading decisions without consultations, and threatening critics with expulsion from the party. Winnie also defended ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Embakasi East MP Babu Owino, setting up a clash with party leader Oburu Odinga, who, by the way, is her uncle. So, still just on the same issue as well, on what was said yesterday and what was not said, and what this signals. She's currently serving at the East Africa Legislative Assembly, and the big question is, would she be thinking of coming back locally to just pursue local politics? On one of the engagements last year, as they were burying their father, she publicly spoke about it and said she was ready to come back home. And so what does that mean? Come back home to serve as, within ODM party, to come back home to serve at a particular local seat, to come back home, and be part of a local government. And so there are so many things that you could read into that. But for her to speak on this as well points a picture that Oburu Oginga has got a lot to deal with at the moment. Now, according to Winnie, the party risks losing public support due to selfish individuals who claim leadership while betraying its founding values. Manu, I know you can hear me. Can we just go back to listen in to Winnie Odinga on one of the bites we had earlier on and what she said?
Kuna watu wengine walisema hatuwezi kuja hapa. Hao ni akina nani? Waeleze nimerudi nyumbani, nimepika kwa bedroom na hata saizi natoa viatu. Hakuna siku baba aliwahi eleza anybody atoke kwenye hii chama. Wanaongea sana na tukiuliza maswali wanasema tutoke kwenye chama. Tukitoka watabaki na nani kwenye hii chama? Hauwezi copy paste baba. Huwezi copy paste the greatest leader Kenya has ever seen. Atunabadilisha na huyu ati sasa tuko na baba. No, haiwezi kuwa hivyo. So sisi kama watu wa ODM lazima tuongee na watu wetu. Lazima tuongee na mavijana. Tuongee na wamama. Pia wazee tutaongea nao. Na wale wanasema ati sijui baba aliwaambia sijui nini ati. Hiyo ni kukosa adabu. Nyamazeni bwana. Hiyo ni kukosa adabu. Tulieni bana. Everything baba alikuwa anasema mbele ya watu wake.
All right, so that's Winnie Odinga yesterday at the particular rally that I'm talking about, and I've said it's really about semantics and what people see. And so for her to be able to, I'd say maybe organize this without any political leader present other than herself, her brother, and perhaps other grassroots mobilizers really speaks a lot to what she intends to do for the party. And, you know, this is a clear indication that she may be opting to come back home and, you know, be very much active on local politics as well as just within ODM party. So that is a developing story, I'd say. And we'll be looking to see what happens next after that. Now, I'd love us to cross the borders a bit to Uganda, where Yoweri Museveni was declared president. Uganda's polls, and will be serving from 2026 to 2031. By the way, by the time he concludes, he'll be 86 years of age. And he says that, okay, last time he said in 2021, he said that he won't be running again, but it's 2026 he ran. So he's also said he again in 2031. I mean, at this point, we can just say, let's wait and see. But Museveni, age 81, was declared president-elect with 71.6% of the vote. The polls were held under the cloud of heavy military deployment and internet shutdown. And they've been offline, those people, from Tuesday all the way to yesterday evening when they had their internet restored. So, when Uganda's Electoral Commission chairperson Simon Byabakama declared President Yoweri Museveni the winner of January 15th presidential elections on Saturday, the announcement confirmed more than a disputed electoral outcome. It reaffirmed a political model that has defined Ugandan's governance for nearly 4 decades. And it continues to shape power retention across much of Africa. I was actually listening to one of a story that was done by an international media. And when Yoweri Museveni got into office, it wasn't a clean, I'd say, transfer of power. They had to take it by force back then. And one of the things he said, he disliked people that stay in power for long. And he talked about how he would ensure that he gives a transformative sort of political shift in Uganda. Well, 35 years later or more, he wasn't really able to, you know, stay true to those words which he spoke as he was getting into office back then when he was just about 41 years of age. So this result extends Museveni's rule to more than 40 years since he took power in 1986 and marks his 7th elected term. It places him firmly within a category of African leaders whose longevity has been sustained not merely by popular support, but by political systems that progressively narrow the space for genuine competition. When we speak about political systems, they actually matter because a Ugandan law had to be changed to allow him serve this far, because initially there was a term limit that was changed. Let's talk about the age that was also changed by Ugandan's courts. One of the electoral agencies, the electoral leaders of Uganda's elections, talked about how they were actually threatened if they announced a different candidate who would have won the elections. They were threatened and they feared for their lives. So these are systems that have been manipulated by design to support this kind of reign by Museveni, even as he was, battling it out with Robert Kyagulanyi, an activist who was also a previous pop star. And, he got into the politics in 2021, lost the elections. He's lost them this year as well in 2026. And this may be a leader who appeals to a younger generation of Uganda who have not known any other president. I mean, look at people born from 1986 to date. They have only known Museveni as president. And so they may have opted that, perhaps let's choose somebody different. Let's see who leads us differently compared to what Museveni has done. But at the moment, well, they've got that to contend with until 2031. And let's as well listen in to Museveni after he won the elections on Saturday.
When we reviewed the membership on the 6th of May, you remember we had 21 million members and 18 million of them are voters. But we are now talking of 8 million who turned up. So the opposition, and many of them who did not turn up are our members. So the opposition are lucky, because if all our members turn up, there will be no opposition in Uganda, I can assure you. The plan everywhere was that where NUP is defeated, gangs with the pangas should attack the polling station. They came with the pangas to attack the polling station and they were shot. 7 of them were shot dead there with the pangas. The other year, when there were riots in Kenya, the same riots were supposed to happen here. But the people they wanted to use came and told me. And we diffused the. So therefore, I am advising this small group of traitors, but they are working with foreigners, some homosexual groups, some this and that. This is free advice from me, that please stop what you are doing, because we know everything, and you will not do it, either peacefully or unpeacefully.
All right, to other stories as well, briefly, top of the nation, why Mbadi Caribos are in trouble. Late last year, 2 ships with 55,000 tons of duty-free rice from India and Thailand docked at the port of Mombasa. The shipment, worth about 6 billion shillings, will not have attracted controversy, were it not for a court order blocking the grain imports. Now, petitioners claim the government defied the order by publishing a new rice imports notice to circumvent another frozen by the courts. They want the High Court to sanction Treasury CS John Mbadi and the KRA General Commissioner Humphrey Watanga, arguing the imports disadvantage local farmers. And so if there was a court order, the big question is, why would they go against the court order? Or is it just the nature of Kenyan leaders to not obey court orders? So that is also a headline on the Nation newspaper this morning. Even as we were taking a look at some of the key stories headlined, as well as Rigathi Gachagua, who continues his launch of the DCP party. He held a meeting over the weekend at the coastal region as he attempts to woo coast voters, and he dismissed reports of being deserted by allies. DCP is also a critical opponent as well come 2027, and perhaps they're just laying ground. So those are some of the stories making headlines on the papers this morning. But of course, largely the top story will be on ODM. We'll be looking to see how that develops, any response that may come in from various ODM leaders or ODM quarters, and what this means as well for ODM. So that is it this morning. Thank you for watching Morning Live. I hope you are up to date and up to speed on what is making headlines, not just across the country, but also on the local daily. So stay tuned. We'll be having various subsequent bulletins throughout the day. Gatuzi comes in at 11 a.m. and they'll be taking a look at your counties before we come back here with the news at 1. So keep it EBN, don't go too far. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a great morning ahead.